Hey everybody, Samwise Raridon Community Herbalist here, and today we're talking about yarrow, which is our June herb of the month. And yarrow is one of my favorite all-time plants. I mean, I think I say that every month. But yarrow has a special place in my heart for being a really strong boundary plant, a plant that's really great for first aid and stopping bleeding. It's also one of those like amazing, intelligent magic plants that can also do the opposite if it's needed to stimulate bleeding in terms of like delayed or like stagnant menses. And yeah, it's beautiful, it's magical, and it has some really great lore. So I'm excited to talk to you about that today. But yeah, if you don't know yarrow, it is like this beautiful, kind of almost weedy looking, but in terms of its dryness and kind of stockiness. But it has these like beautiful kind of like cloud like little flowers, although they're kind of dense, with little florets, and these really beautiful long like feathered leaves. And both the flowers or the leaves can be used in medicine, and we tend to use them again for first aid purposes, for in tincture as a liniment, which is like a topical application of a tincture for stopping bleeding of like a cut that's a minor cut that's pretty deep, that's having some trouble stopping bleeding, and even if you're putting pressure on it, that can be a really awesome time for yarrow. And yeah, so it's a styptic, which means it helps with stopping that bleeding. It's a diaphoretic. It's useful for colds and flus when you need to bring down a fever through sweating. Diaphoretic kind of means like helping to sweat and like move, release heat through perspiration. So yeah, it's also got some salicylic acid in it, which is a similar constituent that's in aspirin, which means you can't use it for cats. I'm not sure about dogs, but yes, cats don't like salicylic acid, but humans do usually okay with that unless you can't have salicylic acid or aspirin. And yeah, it's really great in like a cold and flu situation where you're trying to bring down that fever. And it's been, one of the plants that a lot of my colleagues have been turning to help bring down the fever in response to like the second COVID vaccination. It's been really useful to help mitigate some of those symptoms, but without messing with like the immune response too much, because we want the body to respond to the vaccine to make antibodies. What else? It's a bitter, so it's also helpful for stimulating digestion and helping the gallbladder to express bile. Like when we taste bitter, that's when the gallbladder is like burp and squeezes out some bile and kind of like helps prime the whole digestive system so that things are a little more easily assimilated. And yarrow's a really good one for folks who are working with diverticulitis or like leaky gut syndrome. So because it's both like a bitter, so it's going to help prime that digestive pathway. It's a little astringent, so it's helping to kind of close things, like close kind of lesions or small wounds in the lining of the gut, so that they can heal a little bit easier. And it's a vulnerary, so that means it's like a wound healer, right? So it's helping to close and heal wounds that may have been opened from like irritation or, most likely like allergies. But yeah, it's great for all those things on the physical level. And then on like a lore and magical level, it's really, really awesome for boundaries and helping one remember like what is ours and what's somebody else's. And this is one I use a lot. I use the essence a lot when I'm like working with a ton of clients, or I'm going to be in clinic and like seeing a lot of people. I take some essence that helps me like kind of be with my own energy and also like be present with other people's energy and kind of help limit some of that crossing over of my energy into their energy. And really great for like interpersonal boundary work. Yesterday I like was having kind of an emotional day, like working through some stuff in therapy, and I was supposed to go to a dinner afterwards, so I stuck a little yarrow in my pocket near my heart, and I really felt it easing my heart, and I really felt myself kind of sinking in more to like, like I'm having some reactivity, but that's like my reactivity due to this thing, and like that's their stuff that they're working with, and that's okay. But I really felt a lot of like ease and like clarity around like, yeah, what was mine and what was not mine. So yeah, I recommend, yeah, checking it out with, if you haven't used Yarrow as a boundary essence before. It's a good one. Yeah, and then Yarrow also has like a lot of associations kind of throughout time in different traditions. As a plant that's helpful for divination, like the stalks of the yarrow are what's used, or what has been used in some iterations of the I Ching in Chinese traditions, where the divination comes from like how the stalks fall and like how they cross each other or not. There's certain patterns with certain associations. And it has a lot of associations in like kind of Western Europe as a plant that will help you determine who your lover will be, or who your like partner, or, you know, spouse or whatever. So there's lots and lots and lots of poems and like spells about yarrow. And like, yeah, different rituals around like, you know, going on Midsummer's Eve and then like saying a spell and then touching a yarrow and then opening your eyes, and whoever you see first, that's who you're gonna marry or whatever, which seems risky. That seems like a risky move. But that's a lot of the poems, or some of the poems like that. And yeah, there's other like, you know, protection and yarrow are themes that go together a lot over the course of time. There's a Irish tradition that I was reading about hanging yarrow in the doorway on the eve of the summer solstice to turn away illness or like spirits you don't want hanging around. And another one that I really like about if you're gonna go on like a long journey, to gather 10 stalks of yarrow and give one to the spirits, right, as your offering to the land spirits, and then have those 9 stalks, and then put those 9 stalks under your right heel for your first step on the journey. Probably while saying a blessing of, please bless me on this journey, please protect me. But I liked that as like a protection for a potentially arduous journey. There's also a lot of like myths associated with yarrow. The scientific name is Achillea millefolium. Achillea referring to like Achilles, who I don't know too much about Achilles, but I know that he was involved in a lot of battles and is said to have used yarrow to support his soldiers. And that's another association with yarrow, is that soldiers' wart, or like, yeah, using a lot with really deep puncture wounds that need to heal from the inside out. And yarrow also has that antimicrobial action, so like help ward off infection. And what I think is interesting kind of about the Achilles association is that Achilles, well, one, he died of, you know, a wound on his heel, and there's some irony there around not having the herb when he needed it. But Achilles was also a student of Chiron's, who in Greek myth was like half human, half horse, and was like a renowned teacher of healing and mostly healing. And Chiron was a student of Artemis, and so he was associated with like mugwort and like the Artemisias. And so I enjoy thinking about those two plants together, yarrow and mugwort. Those are very two witchy plants to me. And in fact, actually, yarrow kind of got a bad rap during the burning times, because, you know, it has this association of being a powerful witch's plant and useful for divination, useful for like calling in love and all these things. So at some point it began to pick up some not so nice names like devil's plaything or like devil's nettle or whatever. And yeah, there are accounts of people being punished if they were using yarrow even as late as like the 17th century. So there's some nonsense there, but you know, at the same time, I think people still really recognize that this is a plant that's incredibly useful and incredibly needed in our daily lives. So yeah, that's a little bit about yarrow. We had a really lovely episode of The Herb at the End of the World this month, where I get to talk to Dana Aronson, who's a friend and colleague of mine who does pop-up wound care clinics and first aid clinics, and also does a lot of like disaster relief related to the fires. So I encourage you to check that out. We talk even more about yarrow and some of Dana's experience with that. And yeah, I think I want to share a little bit of like my personal experience with yarrow, which again, like really using that in like a boundary protection sort of way. One is that after some really difficult times and like something that happened that was really traumatic for me, when I was feeling really open and really vulnerable, and not in a good way, but in a like kind of laid open sort of way, I made myself a crown of yarrow to wear around, which, you know, maybe looked, I don't know how that looked to other people, but to me it felt incredibly protective and was like this very powerful like spiritual armor that I needed at that time. And then yarrow shows up in my dreams a lot. I actually dreamt about yarrow last night, and I woke up and I was like, oh, I'm dreaming about yarrow. And I'm of the opinion that even the image of plants can impart some medicine. That's, yeah, I have a hoodie with like a little thing of chamomile on it, and just having that like image of chamomile can be really like soothing in interactions with other people. But with yarrow in particular, I have this memory of I was staying in a bell tent on our friend's land while I was studying at the California school, and I had this dream about this like very malevolent presence that was like this big heavy cloud of like ill will that was kind of coming through the tent and like kind of like sitting over my being. And in the dream, I like conjured the image of yarrow to like kind of push back against this cloud. And it worked. It worked as like a protection spell, like a protection element. And yeah, that was like really like a very powerful experience for me to like be conjuring this image and like, you know, really like getting like conjuring what that plant looks like and smells like, and like kind of moving that image kind of towards that energy. And then in the morning I woke up and I found this like piece of obsidian outside of like this like beautiful small, like, you know, this big piece of obsidian right outside my tent. And it was sort of like this, I don't know, it was this interesting moment. And obsidian has the association of like kind of seeing parts of yourself that may be difficult to be with, like being with your shadow self, but like lessons that need to be learned. So yeah, those kind of felt connected to me in those ways. But yeah, the image of plants, really powerful. That's why I like to like draw and paint those plants and like put them on my clothing, or like have pins. I have a yarrow pin that Bonnie Rose Weaver made that I have lost 1,000 times because I kind of feel like the universe is taking the pin instead of me, you know. So Bonnie Rose Weaver has graciously given me several of them, so that when the universe comes for the pin, I have a backup ready to go. But yeah, that's been really helpful, like especially just navigating being with a lot of people, like having kind of that image that I can like look down and be like, okay, Yarrow is here with me. That helps a lot. So yeah, that's some about Yarrow. I hope you get a chance to make friends if you haven't known it already. And I'm going to leave you with this Yarrow poem that, let's see, I think comes from Gaelic traditions. It says it's translated by Carmichael. And it says, I will pluck the yarrow fair, that more benign will be my face. That more warm shall be my lips, that more chaste shall be my speech. Be my speech the beams of the sun, be my lips the sap of the strawberry. May I be an isle in the sea, may I be a hill on the shore. May I be a star in the waning of the moon, may I be a staff to the weak. Wound can I every man, wound can no man me. So may that be a little protection spell for your week, and we'll see you next time.